I definitely feel like, a lot of it, when I say it, a lot of whatever people are sensing, might be otherwise lucky, that it really was just looking at opportunities and capitalizing on them. And I also do believe that there's fortuitous events, right? Where if you see, if you and I may go to the exact same party, talk to the exact same people, and then leave, and you might say, that was boring, not worth my time, ugh, yuck. And then I might say, oh my God, seriously, like that was amazing. Like, did you hear him talk about da 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 da? Because I think that, that would be a great opportunity for you to do X, Y, and Z. So I think that, there's probably very little luck. But if I'm stepping to my humble side, I would say, I feel like there's a lot of blessings. Nothing comes from me,
Hey, welcome back to Hawaii Real, everybody. I'm your host, Io Ke'ehu, and I want to send a shout out to our beverage host, Hawaiian Springs Water. Have you tried this water, Jalene?
I have. Oh. I have a bottle right here.
It's alkaline water. It's from the Big Island. 7.7 pH balance on that.
I was gonna say, yeah.
It's good.
Balance that pH.
Yeah, especially after like the loco moco with the gravy on top. Yeah, you want to have like some
cleansing.
Yeah, to get rid of that acid.
Reset.
Yeah, and the bottles. I always say that. Oh, my boys like the bottle, the shape of the bottle, because it's like bottom heavy.
Yes.
And they're flipping the bottle.
Well, I like to reuse. I like to reuse the bottles.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of pour some like iced tea, or and then just put it back in the ice box.
Beautiful bottle.
Yeah, I love it. It's gorgeous.
Yeah. All right, everybody. If you haven't yet, please subscribe to this podcast on YouTube, and if you're one of our awesome listeners, to any of the audio platforms on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Can you do us a favor? Can you leave us a quick review or a 5-star rating or whatever you think, and leave us some thoughts on how you think we can improve the show? It's going to help us so much and going to help this channel grow ever more and help so many more people. Mahalo. Today I have with me Jalene Kanani Bell. Thank you so much for coming on. Yes. She is the artist and founder of Noho Home. And you can find them at nohohomehawaii.com. That's NOHOHOME.com. And hi, thank you so much for coming on. You're like famous, kinda.
Yeah, the kinda.
Well, if you look at your website at Noho Home, which kind of drew me to, I saw you on Instagram, I saw your work and the pillows and the drapes and the blankets that you guys make. And I was like, oh, that stuff looks legit cool. It's not the gaudy floral Hawaiian print. You guys have a different story background as to why you guys print the type of patterns that you do.
Yeah, that's so good to hear, actually. That really was like our aim. Our aim was really to be able to do something that's not really out there in the marketplace.
But then I checked out your website and I scrolled down and it's like, wait, you guys are in Macy's? You guys are in Bloomingdale's? Like you're all over. You're legit.
Well, I can tell you the story about that. So I mean, it's not as huge as you think. It is huge. It's huge. It's quite huge.
Invalidate yourself.
You're right. I shouldn't do that.
Good stuff.
Yeah. Let's talk about that. Let's talk about invalidating.
Well,
no.
That's a huge one. That we can totally dive into that.
Let's just deep dive right now. No, just kidding.
No. Like, what is the backstory behind your art? Because you're the artist, not just the owner of it, but you actually create all of the designs that you guys do?
Yes. Yes, with the exception of very few. All of the motifs start with me. Yes.
So what is your creative process behind going through putting it from thoughts in your head to all the way down onto a pillow or a blanket or something like that?
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna take it back just a little bit to when I started doing this, because now it's a bit more of a rote process. But when I first started, like 20 years ago, it was I was doing it for the commercial marketplace, right? So for hotels, banks, and, creating custom products that would be able to tell a story around, whatever narrative it was that we wanted to share. And when I say we, the company, the space, the interior designer, the architect, whoever was kind of rallying around, a project. And so what I had to do was take a lot of inspiration, a lot of narrative, a lot of stories that, we wanted to tell, and bring it down to just, this really micro motif. And, when you work in textiles, it's all about repeats, pattern repeats. And so, taking that inspiration and telling a story and then bringing it down to a very basic element or motif, and then creating the layers upon that. So how do we continue to tell the story, not only through the motif, but into the pattern and into what other things you bring to the pattern. So maybe you're not just using one motif, you're using multiple motifs together. And then you start to tell the narrative and the story and the inspiration through color. So it's not just a color story because you want to talk, you want this, this palette of colors. It's colors that tell a story about the inspiration. We want to be a little bit more authentic. We're not just talking about seasonal colors. We're talking about, where does this inspiration exist and what colors surround it? How does it appear in nature, or how do the different colors make you feel when you think about the particular inspiration? And then texture. So texture is a huge part of textiles and product design.
Right.
You want to think about what it feels like. How does it how does it feel? How does it perform? That's a huge one.
So that's part of the story too.
Yes, absolutely. Right. Where are you going to utilize these products? Be it, and when I say textiles, I mean textiles, not just fabrics, but carpet, textile wall coverings, and then beyond the textiles, using motifs and case goods and other hard products. So that kind of sums up, the unique experience, I think, of creating unique design, but having it tell stories.
Right. So when you talk about that, in my mind, what I'm kind of digesting is like, this is what you're doing sounds like logo design on a whole scale. Like you're doing it all the time for your brand, for your story, but you're continually doing it and then having to, it's not just one logo. It's got to look good on,
oh my gosh,
a
that
carpet.
Is amazing
or,
insight. I've literally never thought of it that way. I've actually recently been asked to develop a logo, which I am 90% there. So I apologize. I owe you the rest of it if you're watching. And it's not the first logo I've developed, but it's a very special logo for a very visible organization and group of people. And, I said, oh, well, I'm not, when they asked me, I said, well, I'm not a logo designer, but I would love to do this for you.
You are.
And the fact that you just said that makes so much sense to me. And I hadn't really put it in that context, but you're absolutely right. You have to put a lot of inspiration, a lot of ike into just a small motif.
But you're taking it even further with the tactile feel of it.
Yes.
Like, because logos are mostly just visual.
They're two-dimensional.
But now you got to add in the touch.
The three-dimensional. So actually, I think it's easier. I think, any
Cool.
additional layer that you have to tell that story is huge. Like, even the context of where you put that product, right? So now you've developed a product, but if you can think about the context of where you're putting it, that adds another layer of storytelling and and your ability to share your inspiration. So
Well, so let's take it all back. What is your background, and how do you come up with these creative designs to do all of these things and put them down? Like, what's going on in your brain?
well, so my background actually, I mean, if we're going way back, um, I started straight out of college, working in FF&E, furniture, fixture, and equipment, working with architects and interior designers to select product that they would be using in their commercial spaces.
Mm-hmm.
But what I quickly found out is that the manufacturers really just didn't have any designs that spoke authentically to our island history and culture. And so, as a native Hawaiian, that really didn't sit well. So I started designing myself. And so I kind of reached down into my na'au and pulled out some things that I had been kind of fighting. So I grew up with my mom, who was a designer herself. She had a company called Wailani Originals Hula Girl Creations, and she was a part of the Renaissance, the Hawaiian Renaissance.
Through like the 70s and stuff.
Yeah, so she started with doing the T-shirt for OHA as they were, coming into being. She was the education coordinator for the Polynesian Voyaging Society, and went on to be the entrepreneur training specialist for Aludike, and trained thousands of Native Hawaiians, literally over 1,000 Native Hawaiians,
nice.
how to go into business for themselves. And so, growing up with my mom and her business, it was late nights. It was sleeping in the car while she was at the silk screener's home, and they're in the garage silk screening, and and then there was the late nights of designing or going to visit Uncle Donald, who assisted her with design. And
so you grew up in that environment where that's normal.
I did, and quite frankly, I didn't care for it.
And yet here you are.
And yet here I am. Yes. So, and the part that was challenging for me was just, my weekends. Every weekend was craft fairs. Today we call them pop-ups, but pop-ups are really just glorified craft fairs.
Right.
And so, it would be one thing if you did a craft fair once a month, but we did them every weekend, and then we started doing them both Saturdays and Sundays.
Hey, your mom was a hustler.
My mom was a major hustler. She was fantastic. And so, I started selling when I was 8. And
Nice.
and then sometimes my mom, as I got older, my mom would drop me off at a craft fair and then go to another one. So we could do 2 craft fairs at the same time.
So you're running the booth.
I was running the booth.
Nice.
Yeah, so back to your question, which was basically where did I start? I had to kind of dig down and think about that creative inspiration and my mom's design process and make it my own. And that's really where it came from, because frankly I was not schooled in it at all. I have a degree in political science.
And yet you're a great artist.
Thank you.
Well, I guess,
I'm
education doesn't
going to
necessarily-
stop there with the thank you. Normally I downplay it and I say, oh, no, and
Imposter
but
syndrome.
I'm learning with other people's,
I have the same problem too
Yeah.
with this whole thing, podcast and everything. But so I guess from the Native Hawaiian point of view, where does your creative process come from in regards to the storytelling behind the Hawaiian prints and stuff? Because they're different from what we traditionally see, and they're not traditional like tapa type patterns either.
Sure. Yeah. So I like to call them, artful, woven with Native intelligence. Because what I do is I take inspiration from the past and add, the artful touch to it. So we're not trying to recreate, what had come before, but we're trying to share it in different and new contexts with the application of, of different type of artistic practices or different kind of mana'o and ike. And, with what's kind of interesting is that, we have, and what I think is a really, fantastic, unique opportunity for us as Native Hawaiians is people have, from a design perspective, especially with decor, been putting, and fashion, have been putting the aesthetic onto us, right? So, Hollywood gave us an aesthetic. They decided to pull what they wanted to pull from our culture, and then they magnified it, right? And then that, that continued. And so while love the golden era, the unique opportunity that we have now is to tell stories that we as Native Hawaiians think are important, and not others telling us what's important. So,
That's huge.
Yeah. So, typically I'll stay away from pineapples and rainbows.
As much as I love pineapples and rainbows.
Yes. So, I'm really looking to tell stories that maybe haven't been told thus far. Our collaboration with Bishop Museum, with the imperiled land snails, we'd like to do more of that. We'd like to tell more stories that maybe have only been told two-dimensionally, right? You've heard the story, but you've not put any tactile art or products to it.
Right, it's not tangible. It's just,
it's not tangible.
Story.
Yeah. So we just want to add another layer and dimension to these stories and illuminate them. We talk about normalizing Olelo Hawaii, right? Every little touch that you can have, not only for, in this case, Olelo Hawaii, but also, the mea, right? Like whatever it is that we're talking about, the inspiration, being able to talk about that inspiration more and more and in different contexts will hopefully start to create more conversations.
Microfactories. So you guys have a microfactory? What is a microfactory?
Okay, so
it's not like a tiny little building, no.
No, it actually is a tiny little building. Oh. It's only 3,000 square feet, and it's it's basically a shell of a warehouse that we've turned into a microfactory. And a microfactory is really a place where you have processes that would typically, occur in much larger factories, but using innovation, technology, and advanced equipment, you are able to create lines that create product very succinctly.
So you guys do all your stuff there?
No, we do not do all of our stuff there. We do all of our made in Hawaii products there, which would be our decor pillows, our kitchen textiles. We also do PPE. And
cool.
we also intend to be part of the Hawaii fashion ecosystem. So while we don't have a fashion brand, we look forward to helping young creatives, pursue their fashion dreams.
Yeah, very cool. So what got you started in creating a little factory here?
Well, so if you were to Google these two words, microfactory and mass customization.
Okay.
So I'll have to explain mass customization, which is the ability to create one unit as effectively as, say, 500 units.
Okay.
And that's using advanced technologies, that's using digital inventories. And basically what that allows is a micro or small business to participate in say, export, where they're able to host products online and be able to make on demand.
And not do 500 or 5,000 units.
Exactly. And be able to create large bodies of work to choose from, but not have to hold them in inventory.
That's crazy. I like that idea.
Yeah.
Because I always want to make hats and stuff. I don't know why. Maybe because I like wearing hats.
Well, because everybody wants to make hats and t-shirts. Now we don't do hats and t-shirts,
but
quite
it gets
frankly.
expensive, right? When you want to order hats, it's like if you order a dozen, it's going to be, quite expensive to order just a dozen versus ordering 1,000 of them. That's going to be much cheaper.
Yeah.
So you guys are doing it where whatever product they're doing for a microfactory, you're able to produce it in those small amounts.
Yes. So we're able to produce 1 unit. And so that unit in general, your whole business plan, so to say, is going to be at higher margins than it would if you were, mass producing. But it allows you to know over time what your 1 unit cost is, and you can make that 1 unit anytime. And so in that process, being able to sell something before it's made is a tremendous thing for cash flow.
That would be awesome.
Right?
Like, I didn't even make it yet, and you're buying it?
Exactly.
Kind of like a miniature Kickstarter?
Yeah. So, this was a concept that, the United States had really kind of rallied around. How are we going to get, industry back, fashion and textiles? How are we going to bring it back? And they came up with, this concept. But they didn't, I guess, execute on it. They didn't find the entrepreneurs who were interested in executing upon it. A paradigm shift had to occur. And really what happened was that in the last 2 years, China started doing it. So, if you go on to Instagram and you see these commercials that pop up, or the ads for, really cute brands, and they have fantastic designs and, unique prints and lots of choices. Well, you're going to buy it, and 28 days later, it's going to show up at your doorstep. And that's because you bought it before they made it. And they're presenting all of these different stores as being unique. And they are, but they're all China factories who have now basically built out their own process.
So it's like an on-demand factory or on-demand manufacturer where as soon as somebody clicks purchase on the little website,
it goes into the
then
queue.
They queue it up, then they produce it, and then they ship it.
Yes. Yep.
I mean, for one point, that's really good for small business and entrepreneurs, but I guess, does it hurt larger businesses, American businesses?
Well, there's still that margin factor, right? So if you are a larger business, you are still going to be able to make excellent margins by purchasing in mass overseas for that high demand client, right? So for the Targets and the big box stores of the world that continue to have high volume demand, manufacturing in overseas in mass still is the way that business is done. We are just kind of starting to see how we can chip away at this. And so I guess what I was saying before is, if you were to Google mass customization and microfactories, you would find that it's what the fashion industry considers to be the wave of the future, the sustainable wave of the future, the next level of innovation for the fashion industry. So that was particularly interesting to us. And then, I said, well, why not home decor?
Right.
I mean, quite frankly, it's easier, right?
Was anybody else doing it?
You're sewing squares and rectangles.
Yeah.
So, so, on the mainland, there are some companies that, have built out these concepts. And I think what's unique here is that, we were able to do it here in Hawaii as a proof of concept. Probably our most innovative piece of equipment is a seeing eye laser cutter. So
That
typically,
sounds dangerous.
yeah.
Like something you put on a shark.
Yeah. So every time I say that, I get lots of different. Someone's like, "Can I cut my fish in it? Can I make sashimi?"
That'd be great. Could cut it and cook it at the same time.
Yeah. But what was I saying? I've totally lost my train of thought. I'm thinking about sashimi.
Laser cutting.
I'm hungry. Yeah, so typically with your laser cutter, you put in a CAD program, and the CAD program will tell it where to cut. With this piece of equipment, the camera itself identifies what is on the fabric and then cuts it out in that fashion. So it's really a unique process. You can do a lot more with it.
So you're getting rid of all the CAD processing already.
We still have that capability,
right.
but yeah.
this laser thing.
But it's much easier.
More of an
we don't have to program anything in. It looks at it and we tell it, okay, yeah, that what you're seeing is correct. That's where I want you to cut it. Or if if it's seeing things a little goofy, we have to kind of just manipulate it a little. But yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. And every piece of the line, so to say, or every piece of that microfactory line is meant to add innovation and technology to the human experience, right? Because we still have operators.
Sure.
We have a graphic design station, we have a print station, we have a pressing station, we have the laser cutting station, and then we have our finish sewing station. So even our sewing is very line oriented and smart oriented. So industrial machines that have a lot of smart capabilities and are very specific to the work that is being done. So you kind of start with what you're going to be making instead of one machine just making everything.
So can I ask you, what would or do you have advice for the Hawaii local who's got designs in their head that thinks that, hey, I should make this purse or this pillow or this design or this dress and get to your level?
So what I would say is there are lots of places in Hawaii that will help you with ideation, will help you with design thinking, not design creation, but design thinking. How do I go about the design process from an entrepreneurial standpoint, right? And then they will also help you with entrepreneurial skills. Now that said, we are actually today launching and accepting applications for an internship. And so we'll be doing a bit of that ourselves. But I would say, as I say to myself, reach out to learn not only how to, develop your designs, but learn how to develop your business strategy, right? So even if you just want to, do it as a little side hobby, and really just kind of, want to be able to put a couple of things out on Etsy,
right.
You still should understand the sales process. You still should understand the finances around it. You still should understand your business entities. And there's never been a time where there's been more resources
of course,
to help people with that.
Yeah, with the internet, social media.
Yes.
Boom.
And even in Hawaii, even that there's so much face-to-face or virtual Hawaii-centered assistance right now. You have Council for Native Hawaiian Advancement, you have Vai Collective, you have Waianae Coast, I'm losing my words, but they have an entrepreneurial center there as well. So there's really not been a better time to tap resources.
I always tell people that there's no better time than now. To start. What was one of my favorite quotes? there's no better time than here. There's no better place than now. So it kind of changes the words up a little bit, but it like takes on a different meaning when you say it in that order.
In that order. I like that. I also think too, this is the, that there's also a time that, that presents itself, right? So opportunity. I'm huge on seizing opportunity. And, when it presents itself, you should grab at it.
Do you see coincidence or do you see signs?
Oh, I see science in a manifest.
Signs.
Oh, science. Well, I see manifest destiny. I'm
Right.
a big manifest destiny person, right? So, if your mind thinks it, then you're going to constantly be looking for connections, right? So if you don't continue to permeate these thoughts in your mind, then you probably will miss things. And so if you do, and you have these thoughts, you have these goals, you have aspirations, you continue to think about them, you start to talk about them with other people will then connect with those things that connect to them. And one by one, those things start to create synergies and energies behind them themselves. And
the snowball effect.
Effect. We had it tonight, Yep.
We were just talking about that off camera.
Yeah. So, you shared a little piece of something and I said, oh my gosh, well, we definitely have to deep dive into that because we have an opportunity along those same lines, right?
And for me to not see that as a sign and to see that, oh, it's just a coincidence and not gravitate towards that would, in my mind, be wrong. I should follow those signs and follow those connections and that synergy.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how things work.
And then I think you want to vet everything, right?
Sure.
Yeah, you want to at least have the opportunity. I always tell my kids this. Basically, business is the practice of everything you preach to your kids.
Yeah. Go ahead and practice it, guys.
Yeah. I would tell my kids that I want them to just have as many opportunities as possible. They don't have to take them, but to be able to have them, so you want to get an education so that you can choose between not working in your field and working in your field, right? Staying home and caring for children or, doing things in a career that, that you wanted to, that's more hobby oriented versus actually participating in that career. But you still have options, you still have mana'o, you still have a foundation, you still have a network of people from which to pull from should you need to, right? Versus not having that opportunity and to be stuck in a place and not know where to go. So
I think everybody has options. It's just about seeing those options or knowing that you do have options, even when you feel like you're stuck in a job that you hate, that you're going to 40-hour work weeks, that you're just miserable every time you go. It's like, okay, you have a choice to not go anymore. Like go find something else to do or get a hobby that takes, care of your soul and your spirit. And then, then going to work isn't so bad sometimes. So
yeah,
options.
I wholeheartedly agree. I think there's, I think so much of it is just seeing the opportunity, and sometimes that's hard. Sometimes it's hard, but a good way to practice that if you're not necessarily accustomed to just, being super
like
optimistic and aware, right, is to find a group of people or even just one friend who tends to be very optimistic and see opportunity and have those conversations, just kind of talk story through it and get perspective. So perspective is huge, right?
Yep. So that's what they always say. Show me your friends and I'll show you your future.
Yeah, I like that.
Okay, one of the things I like to get into with my guests and ask them is to talk about the struggles that they have living here in Hawaii, whether it be, the cost of living or the people or, I don't know, the distance from their home or, family members and stuff like that. Has there been any kind of struggle that you've had to deal with living here in Hawaii and growing up or raising a family or what have you?
So, absolutely. Plenty of struggles, plenty of problems. But I will share with you kind of my viewpoint and perspective of problems in general.
Okay.
And it was initially shared with me by a gentleman, David Arita, a mentor of mine, who would always tell me, if you don't have problems, you don't have business.
Ooh, good one.
Yes. So I took that to heart in life and kind of turned around to be, if you don't have problems, you don't have opportunities, because problems are opportunities to either be innovative and create change to make things better. And it's never been more prevalent now in business than for it to be problems create opportunities. Mm-hmm. If you go to any startup classes, they will tell you when you do your deck, the first slide is, what problem are you solving for? Right. So, for businesses, if you have problems and you solve them, you're a hero. If you have problems and you don't solve them, it's someone else's opportunity to gain their business. Right. Mm-hmm. So,
and I get the Ice Ice Baby lyrics going on in my head. Right? If you got a problem, I'll solve it.
Yes.
But that's totally true. Like with businesses.
Well, sorry, I'm stuck on the 5.0 with my rag top down so my hair can blow. Sorry, I can't leave that yet. We got to go back.
Yes.
Okay, so back to problems. So I always like to think, if you're going to ask me about my problems, I like to come at it with, yes, they were problems, but they also created a mindset of to look at the problems within the context of opportunity. So to answer your question, so for the most part, I raised 3 girls, and I was divorced for 17 years, but I definitely had a village. So I was blessed to have a village that helped me with my daughters and raising them, and that actually is the opportunity of living in Hawaii. You have very close connected ties. I think other places, on the mainland and in the world, you're really just kind of looking at that nucleus family, and people are distant and move away. And so I was just very blessed to have a village that surrounded me. With I would say that kind of isolation, being isolated in the middle of the Pacific Ocean, kind of the most isolated away from other landmass. Yep. It creates opportunity for innovation, right? So, so from the perspective of business, we have, we have supply chain challenges, but if you can figure out a way to solve one aspect of it, that's a business opportunity. Or if you can figure out a way to not need necessarily that supply chain in that way, and maybe you're working in technology or just another silo, that's an opportunity, right? So a lot of the things that we look at as challenges in living here, the cost of living, right? That things cost more because of our isolation. How do you address that, right? How do you, whether you're addressing it by, okay, well, we're going to add value. We're going to add an exponential amount of value to whatever it is that we're doing it, whether it's a service or a product, that goes above and beyond, you know, that and basically gives you some kind of equilibrium with that product or with that problem, excuse me. Yeah. So, high cost of living. Well, if you also continue to integrate that high cost of living and you solve for something about it, you're able to provide something that you've discovered you can make here or grow here so that you don't have that added cost of shipping, right? Not everything can be done in that fashion, but what if you're producing some kind of food through aeroponics that requires very little human labor, but that then yields a large amount of food, that you can sell and be competitive price wise and also fresh, and just there's lots of ways to look at problems as your next innovation. And so that's my answer.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And that, just you saying that, it makes it obvious as to why you're in the position you are now, because you are that go-getter, problem solver, crusher. Like, you have a problem and you look at it as an opportunity to not just, hey, oh, this sucks, oh, my life sucks. But no, my life is not going to suck. I'm going to figure out how to solve this issue and make it benefit myself and my family and people around me.
That were and yes, I mean, I would say yes, and I would say that it's fantastic and it works really well for me, except when my girlfriends want to just download. So they know I'm not the friend to tell their, tell the sad story. There's the sob story like multiple times. Like you get like one time.
I get that too.
And then I start solving the problem. So then usually they just tell someone else.
Hey guys,
I don't get invited to that wine because, and when I
want to complain.
Well, no, I mean, I didn't mean wine and that. I don't get invited to like the wine lunches because I'm gonna want to solve problems. But yeah.
But that's There's a lot of people like that, and I've encountered them too, where they have problems and they want to complain about them, but not actually take the steps to solving them. They just want to cry about it. I'm like, guys, stop.
Yeah.
Let's sit down. Let's talk. Okay, what do you do with this time? What do you do with this? What do you do with this? What do you love to do? What do you like to do? What do you do as a hobby? And go through all these lists of things that, hey, you potentially could do. And we try to start problem solving. A lot of people don't want to hear that. They don't want to do a side hustle. They don't want to do anything else. It's like, okay, well then stop crying to me. Don't cry to me. You come crying to me, I'll help you solve your problem. I'll definitely help you.
I think there's like a equilibrium to everything, right? There's a certain amount of value that they're going to get out of any kind of proposition, and there's a certain amount of energy that people are willing to do to solve that problem, right? So, and that's everything.
Yeah. Let me ask you this. Has anybody told you that have seen like where your status is in life right now and said that, oh, you're lucky? And how do you feel about that if somebody were to say that to you?
Yeah. So yeah, for sure. I think, so people have said stuff like that.
So how do you feel?
Yeah. So I definitely feel like, a lot of it, when I say it, a lot of whatever people are sensing, might be otherwise lucky, that it really was just looking at opportunities and capitalizing on them. And I also do believe that there's fortuitous events, right? Where if you and I may go to the exact same party, talk to the exact same people, and then leave. And you might say, that was boring, not worth my time. Ugh, yuck. And then I might say, oh my God, seriously, like that was amazing. Like, did you hear him talk about da 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 da? Because I think that, that would be a great opportunity for you to do X, Y, and Z. So I think that, there's probably very little luck. But if I'm stepping to my humble side, I would say, I feel like there's a lot of blessings. Nothing comes from me, and it's all very very much blessings that come. But I do also believe hands to prayer, right? So there's a lot of hard work and a lot of as I talked about before, like manifest destiny, really kind of seeing vision, having vision, putting it out there, creating creating opportunities to connect, and then capitalizing, so to say, on those opportunities. And yeah, so
No, I look at you, I'm like, no, she's not lucky. She busted her butt to get where she is, and the positive vibes you put out to the world, and the vision as you put it out to the world, you're talking about it to people, and you start to manifest it correctly, and it does become real. It does.
I agree. And but I'm also going to be super real. I have cried. I have been depressed.
It's part of it.
Something that I rarely share, but I'll share with you, is that there are things that family, illness, relationships, they may be stoppers, right?
Mm-hmm.
And you have to address it, and you have to focus on it, and so I've had several of those, and they've changed the course of whatever I was into at the moment. But if you continue to see opportunity when your mind space opens again, and an opportunity opens again, then then it'll be in the right time and the right place. But definitely many tears. I'm pretty sure I had some this weekend.
Well, it's like, if you don't get upset and stressed out about your work and your passion projects, you're probably not doing it hard enough, or you're probably not investing enough into it.
Yeah.
And that's when that you're on the right direction, when it does make you feel that way, especially when you have stresses. You might have a stress of not getting a certain product in from overseas and not getting this project done. And that's so stressful. But when you look at it, it's like, well, no, that's a good stress, because you are in a position in life where you created that product, and now it's over here, and that is yours. That is your art. That's your value that you're putting out there to the world. And yeah, it didn't get here timely and everything, but it's there. Like, you've created this huge thing. And so it's a good stress. And that's kind of my mind frame when I'm looking at the different stresses and hurdles that I'm encountering, is that, no, this is a good stress. It sucks, but it's only a stress because I've built it up to where it is.
Right. You know what one of my big stressors are? I am constantly stressed, and this has been from kind of day one, and even starting my career. There's always more things you can do.
Mm-hmm.
There's always more you can do, and I am a doer, so I consistently just want to do more. And if I don't do all the things that I've kind of set out to, or that I aspire to, it stresses me out. And then I have to kind of sit back and, take some time and be like, hey, nobody says you have to do this. Only you. Mm-hmm. You're the only person who's saying that this has to, come to fruition, or this has to be done. So put some perspective to it, and, reset. And then, 7 days later, I'm stressed out again. But yeah, that, putting some perspective to that.
Any final words for our listeners here?
Final words. I guess, I guess it would just be to be as open to opportunity, be open to connections, to people. At Noho Home, that's really what we're about in terms of, we're wanting to create opportunities for connection, not only with our products, but with, the sentiments and the values in our home, right? That's never been more evident than during the pandemic. Everyone's kind of refocused into home and creating, connections at home. So, to be open to connections and opportunities is really, I feel like a continuous theme this evening.
Yep.
Although they could have gone in a million different directions. We didn't really have a path. But I think
that keeps it real, though.
Yeah. All right. Hey, Hawaii real.
Hawaii, that's what it is, right? Jalene, it's been so great having you on. I'm so glad that I connected with you and brought you on the show. I'm so glad you said yes.
Always, right? Well, no, sometimes you have to say no.
Sometimes you have to say no.
But most of the time, I like to say yes.
Opportunity opens up. It's like, yeah, I'll do that podcast because you never know who you're going to meet. You never know where it can lead to.
Right.
So it's been great.
Yes.
I got so much value from you coming on the show. So happy. Did you have a good time?
I had a fantastic time, and I'm looking forward to connecting in some of the things that we talked about off camera. Yeah.
Absolutely. 100%. We definitely will.
Fantastic. Mahalo for having me.
All right. As always, stay happy, Hawaii. Can't throw the shakas.
Aloha, ahui ho.